All praise unto Yahweh Shemi Ashai, double honors the apostles of GMS. Honestly, brothers will be pushing this truth and sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. Okay, this is gonna be a long video. I try to keep it underneath 40 minutes, if at all, if I can, if it's possible. But pretty much, it's gonna be a review of the movie that came out in 2015, called The Big Short. Okay, starring my man Christian Bale over here, okay, and Brad Pitt, some of the other actors, I don't know them, but it was a good movie. Okay, you can see it's rated at 7.8. All right, it's a very good movie regarding the 2008 financial crash. Okay, but a lot of the stuff that was said in there was very, important, and I wanted to go into some of the information that they had mentioned. Obviously, if you watch the video, the movie, or ever more, then you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so without much further ado, I'm gonna get into this. So it says here, how historically accurate was The Big Short? Because this movie was depicting what happened in 2008. Now, why is that important? Okay, because you might just see that just happened, 8 years ago. Okay, nearly a decade ago. Okay, all of these events. But see, the reality of the situation is this: when you go and you watch the movie, a statement is made in that the entities, the things that made that crash happen are back again. Okay, right? They just rebranded it as it happens in a society. They rebranded it and they're reselling the same thing. Okay, the same BS. Okay, and that's going to lead to another crash. All right, but ultimately, that's what you're going to see within this whole video. You're going to see that another crash is imminent, man. Okay, when you see how this whole financial system works, and this is another approach and another look, looking from another angle and another direction. This is a kind of film Jake will never watch, man. Okay, Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans, you might get a few out there that are gonna watch this film, but it's a good movie. Okay, you're talking about the apocalyptic type movies. Well, this is a financial apocalyptic type movie, but they're basing it on what happened in 2008. But see, you got the same thing happening right now, man. Okay, so let me get into this without much further ado. I've got a lot of tabs on, so bear with me as I navigate through the information I've prepared here. Right, so it says, how historically accurate is The Big Short? It says Adam McKay's subprime meltdown drama. Okay, which we're gonna define the subprime word here, because that's important. Okay, that's very important. Okay, subprime meltdown drama is fast, witty, and furiously righteous. Okay, it says, but when it comes to the real events behind the story, is it a good bet? Okay, and it says, it starts with a glamour, right? So it says glamour. The Big Short begins in the 1970s with the inventions of the mortgage security. So you know how we do these videos here at GMS. Okay, we go into these different words, man. Okay, we go into what we're talking about. So a mortgage security or mortgage-backed security, pretty much when you have investors and they're investing on something, on securities. Okay, the security behind these securities that these bankers, rather more these investors are buying, are backed by mortgages, of which this article is going to say that. So a mortgage-backed security is a type of asset-backed security that is secured by a mortgage or a collection of mortgages. Okay, so that's important here. All right, because it's going to say, it says here collection of mortgages. All right, now why is a collection of mortgages important? Because when we go into the collateralized debt obligation here, or the CDOs, which was the fuel behind the 2008 crash, okay, that is a collection of mortgages. Okay, and what you're going to see as we go through this information, those mortgages, when investors had invested in them, okay, those CDOs, those securities, okay, were rated a lot higher than they really were, because a lot of people that were buying those houses were buying those subprime. Okay, which we're going to define a lot of these different things as we go through, but nevertheless, let's get into this. Okay, so back here with mortgage security, so I can close this down. Okay, So it says here, mortgage-backed security is a type of asset-backed security. Okay, what's an asset-backed security? Asset-backed security is a security which income payments and hence the value are derived from a collateralized or backed by a specified pool of underlying assets. Housing comes to mind. Okay, and it says the pool of assets is typically a group of small and illiquid assets which are unable to be sold individually. Okay, this is pooling the assets into financial instruments allows them to be sold as a general to general investors. So when you put all of these mortgages together, all right, you can have, you know, a Ling Man from China out there, okay, and buy these security. You know, you can have you know, Su Xing, okay, buy these asset-backed securities as a potential investment. Okay, so we can close that down because we pretty much finished with that information. So let's go back to mortgage-backed securities. Yeah. So it says the loans together in the securities, the loans together packages. Well, let's read this sentence. It says, or packages the loans together into a security that investors can buy. It says the mortgages of the mortgage-backed securities may be residential or commercial. Okay, so you got commercial buildings. Okay, and that's why you have what's known as investors, and they put a certain amount of money up. Okay, and then you have those commercial buildings or residential buildings built, but that money that they put to invest in that has to be borrowed from somewhere, and the security for that debt is these mortgage-backed securities. So when they say to the banker, you know, I want 1 billion for the 5 towers in central New York or central London, okay, they're gonna ask him what collateral have you got for that, and they're gonna say, look, I got these mortgage-backed securities that I had bought, these CDOs, okay, and you know, I want this amount of money, okay, which is in essence how this our system works. Okay, no one's actually got money. A lot of people got a lot of debt. All right, and you know, the people that end up paying for it is the people that are paying the taxes, man. Okay, because when this crash happened, as you see in the movie, which I recommend, you know, highly recommend that movie be watched. Okay, when you watch this movie, you find out that a lot, you know, when this crash happened, who bailed them out? Okay, it was the government that bailed them out with the promise of what? Going back onto the same, because really ultimately all of this that you're seeing on a very difficult to understand basis, of which this stuff is difficult. You damn near need a law degree to understand what's going on here. But when you see this all is derived from a simple principle, okay, of how currencies come into fruition. Okay, which is known as government debt spending. In other words, the government borrows a certain amount of money from a private entity, okay, with the promise of paying that back. So when the government pays this debt off, it's going to borrow it from somewhere else, okay, with the promise that the American people or the English people or the people in whatever country are going to pay that debt off. Okay, so what you see with mortgage-backed securities is the exact same thing. Okay, you're seeing the exact same thing taking place, but only you're seeing it later down on the line. Okay, so they're saying, you know, you got to promise that this person is going to pay back their mortgages, but which that statement is going to become more important as we go through these different articles that I've got here. Okay, so it says the mortgages of a mortgage-backed security may be residential or commercial, depending on whether it is an agency mortgage-backed security or non-agency mortgage-backed security. It says in the United States they may be issued by structures set up by the government-sponsored enterprises like Fannie Mac or Freddie Mac, okay, or they may be private labeled, okay, issued by structures set up by investment banks. Okay, so I'm gonna call that a day on that, and then we go to back to this. Okay, so it said, so we understood what that was talking about. So it says the Big Short begins in the 1970s with the invention of mortgage-backed securities, of which they say in this movie that is the bread and butter of the American the modern day American financial market. That is the backbone of it. Okay, it says in the case in case you're falling asleep or walking out, within 3 minutes there is a line. The bankers went through from the country club to the strip club, accompanied by footage of nearly naked ladies, okay, showing their boobs and their bumps. And it's quite annoying. It's quite an annoying way to start, and may give the impression that the film will follow the lead of say, Wolf of Wall Street in trying to make the world of finance less tedious by submerging it in tits and glitter. Okay, it says, and there's even a scene of Margot Robbie, who plays Jordan Belfort's wife in Wolf of Wall Street, explains subprime mortgages and securities. Okay, so let's go to subprime mortgages and see what that's all about. So this is, again, okay, this is a very important thing to understand, because you would understand when once you get your head around this, you understand that you basically got another crash coming. You have to, because the same thing happened in history, and you're gonna have the same thing happen in the future if we're doing exactly the same thing. In other words, if a path leads down to war, and you went to war in history, where you're gonna have and you're taking the same path, then you're gonna end up having a war in it. Okay, so it says, what is a subprime mortgage? Okay, a subprime mortgage is a type of mortgage that is normally issued by a lending institution to borrowers with low credit. Okay, so the vast majority of the Hispanic, Native American, and Negro community, they're regarded as having low credit. Okay, so they have these high rate mortgages, of which once the payments, and you're gonna see with the variable rate mortgages, okay, once those interest rates start varying and the payments increases, you get a lot of defaulting. Okay, so when we was talking about here, when I had pulled out that the mortgage-backed securities, and how that turns in turn is they all put into what's known as CDOs, and we're going to get into that. Okay, and CMO, if I could find it. Okay, right, when they all packaged into that, pretty much you have an appetite for destruction. Okay, you have a thing that's going to blow up, because those interest rates on a lower level on the person that you and me that buys a house, and you can't pay that house off when you default, well, that ricochets into everybody else defaulting, because if you default, that means someone's not getting paid. That someone not getting paid means that they're going to default on their mortgage. Okay, and then you have a whirlpool of economic collapse, man, which is what's going to happen, and which is what has happened. Okay, so as a result of a borrower's lower credit rating, conventional mortgage is not offered. Okay, it says because the lenders views the borrowers as having a higher than average risk of defaulting on the loan, so they already know that this person is probably going to default on the loan. Okay, so for instance, you have a person that works in a mall or something, doing something in retail. Okay, and they go out there into the bank, and they earn a certain amount of money, minimum wage, and they go out into the bank, and they say, look, I want this house, and they look on the person's history, and they see that this person has bought out a car. Okay, sometimes they make the car payments, sometimes they don't make the car payments. Okay, they was in X amount of £1,000 of debt. They're still clearing that. That's seen as a high risk person. Now, in most instances, that person is not able to get a line of credit, which is how the system works. The system works by you being able to borrow. And you got it to where Esau, okay, I'm talking about these so-called mid-class Esau, they look down on you because they can get a line of credit, man. Okay, but they might be in £200,000 worth of debt, £500,000 worth of debt. And they'll look at a bum on the street with $1 in his pocket and look and feel like they're better than him. Okay, but that's like a whole game of perception, man. Okay, that's our whole game of perception, in which you're perceived as being rich if you have a lot of debt within the society, man. Okay, so it says here, a conventional mortgage is not offered because the lenders views the borrower as having a higher than average risk of defaulting on the loan. So they know this person can't pay it off in the first place. Okay, so it says lending institutions often charge interest on subprime mortgages at rates that are higher than conventional mortgages in order to compensate themselves for carrying more risk. So they've given this loan to a person that they know is unlikely to pay off. They're going to charge them a higher rate of interest. So you got an appetite of destruction right there, man. Okay, this person clearly has no money. You've then given them a line of credit at a higher interest. Okay, but you already perceive that this person is probably going to be incapable of paying the low rate mortgages. Okay, so this whole, you see what I'm saying? This whole society is backward. Here it is, the person is unlikely to pay, so you're going to charge them more because they are unlikely to pay back that initial principal mortgage. So what do you think is going to happen? Well, it's what's already happening. It's what happened in 2008 with these people defaulting on all that debt. What's the term defaulting is it basically means people go, list for bankruptcy. They can't pay the debt back. Okay, so they default. Okay, so it says breaking down subprime mortgages. It says the term subprime is thought to refer to interest rates attached to a mortgage. If a mortgage is considered subprime, people usually assume that it is denoted, right, that the interest rate is high. However, subprime actually refers to the credit score of the individual taking on the mortgage. In other words, subprime, you got prime individual. In other words, investors or a bank is willing to give them a loan because they're more likely to pay that off. That's a good investment. Okay, and that's how basically when we was going into mortgage-backed securities, these things, they just reoccur, but they reoccur at higher levels. Okay, so the reoccurring theme is that someone buys off a certain amount of debt, okay, or they get money in order to pay debt off, and they're going to pay that money back with interest. Okay, but a subprime means that person is below prime or less than a prime individual for paying that debt back. Okay, so it says it actually refers to the credit score of the individual taking on the mortgage. The size of the interest rate associated with subprime mortgages is independent of 4 factors. In order of importance: credit score, the size of down payment, the number of late payments, payment delinquencies on a borrower's credit score, and the type of delinquencies. Therefore, borrowers with credit ratings less than 600, for example, will often be stuck with subprime mortgages and higher interest rates to go along with those mortgages. Additionally, making late payments or declaring personal bankruptcy could very well land the borrowers in a situation in which they could only qualify for subprime mortgages. Okay, thus it is often useful for people with low credit scores, okay, to wait for a period of time to build up their credit scores before applying for mortgages to ensure that they are eligible for conventional mortgages. But see, people in this society, like the scripture says, all this, pride, covetousness. So you see a person who's, with certain amount of money, and you want to be like them. You want to get the house that they have. Okay, but instead of waiting for you to get a proper mortgage, you get what's known as subprime mortgage with those high interest rate. And as you've seen within the 2008 crash, okay, you had a lot of people defaulting or declaring bankruptcy, man. Okay, an example of the rise of subprime mortgages, for those who remember the 2008 market crash, the housing crisis was due in large part to the widespread defaulting on the subprime mortgages. Essentially, many borrowers were given what has been called ninja loans. Okay, so let's see what these ninja loans are. Okay, all right, so a ninja loan is a loan or a slang term for a loan extended to a borrower with no income, no job, and no assets. Okay, yeah, this was happening, probably still happening right now. Okay, it basically had a guy on the street could just buy a house, man. Okay, and then as you're gonna see as we go through these different materials, okay, as you're gonna see that asset that's now seen as an asset. So let's step back for a minute and visualize what we're seeing here. Okay, a person from the street somewhere decided they wanted to get a house. Okay, they're gonna get what's known as a ninja loan, a no job, okay, no asset loan. Okay, they have nothing there's no collateral. Okay, and the only collateral that they have is high interest rates. Okay, the only collateral the bank can create is a high interest rate on this loan. Okay, so let's check out what happens now. All right, this loan is now packaged with other loans. Okay, all right, to create what's known as mortgage-backed securities, or CDOs, or collateralized debt obligations. Okay, which we're going to read about a little bit later on. Okay, it's all packaged into that one thing. Okay, now you have an individual coming from China, coming from Australia, okay, a foreign investor, if you will. They're gonna buy up these collateralized debt obligations, okay. But in order to buy these collateralized debt obligations or these mortgage-backed securities, they need to borrow money, okay. All right, so they borrow money, okay, in the hope that the interest that they're going to make on these collateralized debt obligations is going to not only pay back the principal, but it's going to put a nice chunk of change within their pockets. Can you see the debt cycle on all levels now? Okay, so now you have a situation where one person owns what's known, what they perceive as being a good investment. In other words, these collateralized debt obligations have got an independent rating, right? In other words, a rating independent of what's actually inside them. Okay, so you take 10 people with ninja loans, you package it into a CDO or a mortgage-backed security, all right? Okay, which CDOs are, are packages of mortgage-backed securities put together. So you've got all of that. All of these people ain't got no line, no jobs, no work or anything like that. But the person that bought these has bought that thinking that this is a good investment because it has been fraudulently, as you watch the movie, you're gonna find out. Fraudulently, it's been called a good investment. Okay, and that's how you had the 2008 crash, because when person A, 1, 2, 3, and 4 up to 10 default, well, guess what? That CDO is worthless. It goes poof. Okay, all right, and all of that investment, it grinds down to a halt. Okay, so let's go back onto these subprime loans. Okay, so we was over here. So it says, therefore, right, it says, thus it is often useful for people with low credit scores to wait a period of time to build up their score. So we read that. It says, example of the rise. So we was actually reading ninja loans. Okay, that's what we was reading. Okay, so it says a ninja loan is a slang term for a loan extended to a borrower with no income, no job, and no assets. Whereas most lenders require borrowers to show a stable stream of income or sufficient collateral, a ninja loan ignores verification. Okay, a ninja loan is considered to be a type of subprime lending often found in the mortgage markets. While the specifics of a ninja loan can change, most offer lenders a low initial rate, which is increased by after a period, periods of payments. Okay, or it says the borrower is hoping that the value, and get this, okay, listen to this, okay, because this is going to be interesting. All right, it says the borrower is hoping that the value of the property to appreciate. Okay, in other words, what's known as euphoria. Okay, the mortgage markets or the housing markets increases on the people's belief that the housing market is going to increase. Okay, once that euphoria and that belief goes, people are not willing to pay X amount of £1,000 for that house, and guess what? The values depreciate. It's all a game of belief. Okay, it's all a game of belief, and you got dudes out there that don't believe in the Most High and so on and so forth. Well, the Most High is a more tangible investment. Okay, the belief of this truth is a more tangible investment, because where we store up our treasures in heaven, man. Okay, that is going to give you the higher return, because we're basically, as you're going to watch the movie, we're betting against this society, man. Okay, we're betting against Babylon. But see, we're not investing our money or anything like that. We're investing our time. Okay, we're investing our time, just like how you see in the movie. People are saying, look, actually, let's not buy these securities, bet against them. Well, they betted against them and they got a crazy return. Okay, well, this is the same thing that we're doing. We're betting against society, but we're getting a crazy return. Right, in the spiritual sense. Okay, so it says, now check this. It says the borrower is hoping for the value of the property. They've just got a subprime loan, okay, with variable interest rate. Okay, and they're hoping that the property will increase, okay, so they can take out what was known as equity from the property, right, by means of refinancing. Okay, all right, but we'll get into that. Okay, since the borrower is hoping that the value of the property will appreciate significantly, allowing them to repay the loan with the newly found equity. So for instance, you buy a house for 150,000. Okay, you have low credit. Okay, the house increases 250,000. Okay, you got what's known as equity, okay, within the house. in releasing the equity, in other words, remortgaging, okay, you can now pay less on the principal, okay, because the equity, there was equity within that property, okay. This makes the Ninja loan a very risky proposition for lenders, okay. What happened is that belief that these house prices was going to increase, well, people stopped buying houses, okay. They stopped buying these houses, and some people started defaulting and so on and so forth. You had a cataclysmic crash, man. Okay, so we finished on that. Go back to subprime loans. Okay, an example of subprime. So we've seen that Ninja loans. It says, which are mortgages given to people with no income, no jobs, no assets. Oftentimes, these mortgages were issued with no down payment. So there's no collateral on this. And it says, then these borrowers found themselves underwater in a declining house market. And why was it declining? Because the euphoria associated with any and if you read the history of euphoria, okay, which goes into different markets, and how those different markets were affected by the change in the euphoria. In other words, the people's belief that the value that they were paying for that good was just that. Okay, when that had changed, you had a declining market. Okay, and that's what you're seeing here. It says found themselves underwater in a declining housing market. It says, and with their homes values lower than the mortgage that they owed. Okay, so the value that people were willing to buy that house was actually lower than what they had paid for. So for instance, you buy a house in the market that we're in right now, you're gonna get charged a hell of a lot of amount. That's not how much the house costs to build. The house might cost 20 grand to build. They're charging you 10 times that much. Okay, they're charging you 10 times that much because why? Because people's belief that that house is gonna appreciate allows the person that's selling it to sell it for a higher price. Okay, once that belief goes away, the house goes back to its intrinsic value, which is the bricks and mortar that it costs to build it upon. All right, and then depending on area, you might find out that the house it goes below the value it actually costs to even build it, because no one's going to be able to be willing to buy it. Okay, it says many of the Ninja loan mortgages defaulted because the interest rates associated with the loan were called teaser rates. Okay, which were variable interest rates that started low and ballooned over time, making it very, very hard to pay down the principal of the mortgage. So we're going to go into these teaser loans right now. Okay, so it says here teaser loans, or teaser rates. Okay, it's definition of teaser loans: an adjustable rate mortgage loan in which the borrower pays a very low initial principal interest rate. So this sounds like a great deal for a person who doesn't know nothing about finance or anything like that. They're just going to get a house and put their kids inside a house because why? Because the Joneses were doing it. Okay, they weren't satisfied with rent and so on and so forth. And they also sold these mortgages as being cheaper than because for the most part, a mortgage is supposed to be cheaper than renting because you're paying that mortgage over a certain amount of period of time. However, that only works if you got what's known as a very low interest rate mortgage. Okay, and when you have a teaser loan, you got initial interest rate that's low. Okay, so you think that you're paying a little bit, and you're hoping that the value of the house is going to increase so what you can refinance. All right, but if it doesn't go up, which happens when the euphoria runs out, people start realizing what they're actually buying is worthless. Okay, when that runs out, guess what? Those interest rates are still going to go up, and you're going to end up paying a hell of a lot of money, and people had to declare bankruptcy, man. Okay, it says teaser loans try to entice borrowers into offering an artificially low rate on a small down payment. Okay, all right, on a small down payment. Okay, it says teaser loans try to entice borrowers by offering an artificially low rates and small down payments, claiming that the borrower should be able to refinance before the increases occur. Okay, which is what I just had to explain a second ago. All right, breaking down teaser loans. It says teaser loans are considered an aspect of subprime lending as they are offered to low-income home buyers. Unfortunately, these buyers try to refinance the loan before the rate increases most will qualify for standard mortgages. It says this leaves, so why would they qualify now? So now they qualify because they have collateral, they have the house. Okay, but before they didn't have collateral, so they didn't qualify for a standard mortgage. So let's go for a subprime. Okay, this leaves the borrower with increased monthly payments which they cannot afford. This method of loaning is considered risky and default rates are high. Okay, so that's pretty much that on that. So I can close this one down. I'll go back to subprime loans. Okay, so it says so this is refinancing rather more. So this is because we have quoted this word a few times. So it's a refinance occurs when a business or a person revises a payment schedule or repaying debt. Mechanically, okay, the old loan is paid off and replaced with a new loan offering different terms, okay, different rates in other words, and it says, as it's going to say, a different maturity date. It says when a company refinances, it typically extends its maturity date. Companies or individuals refinancing loans may have to pay a penalty fee. Okay, so that's pretty much the gist on that. Okay, because I'd already explained it in the previous one. Okay, so let's read this one, and then I could go back to one of the other excerpts I've got. So it'll be probably back to this one because we've defined those different things that you got there. And it sounds like a lot, but when I tie this all together in a second, right, in a few moments, you're gonna see why we're basically going towards another crash, and based on the same things that because you got the same things occurring right now as you did back then. Okay, so subprime mortgages, we've read that. Okay, and we've got adjustable rate mortgages, which is similar to what we have seen in what do you call it now? I forget the term, the exact name of it, but you just seen it on the screen. So it says, what is an adjustable rate mortgage? It says adjustable rate mortgage is a type of mortgage in which the interest rate applied on the outstanding balance varies right throughout the life of the loan. It says normally the initial we've seen it on the Ninja loans. Okay, so it says normally the initial rate is fixed for a period of time, all right, which after which it represents it resets periodically, often yearly or monthly. Okay, so like I'd explained, that interest that you pay on that initial loan, it varies. It goes up and down, man. Okay, so people are defaulting and losing all kind of money because what? Because they weren't unable to make those payments back because they were they were a bad investment, man. Okay, it's back to this article. So it says, right. It says, fortunately, the film picks itself up from this point, okay, and ends up being a good deal more thoughtful than those than this first act might lead you to believe. It says, it goes into different characters and so on and so forth there, of which I'm not going to do that. You can check out this article for yourself in the interest of time. I'm not going to do that. So what I'm going to do now is go into these different, these two CDOs, okay, and CMOs, which is what all of these. So we've seen all of the subprime loan, we've seen the Ninja loan, okay, mortgage-backed securities, okay, they all get packaged into what's known as CDOs or CMOs. Okay, so let's read. I'll start with CMOs. Okay, so it says collateralized mortgage obligation is a type of complex debt security that repackages and redirects the payments of the principal and interest from the collateral pool to different types of maturities of securities. Okay, if that sounds confusing, that's because it's supposed to be. Okay, this is supposed to be really is a simple. It really is simple as just passing on the debt up the chain. That's all it is. Okay, but they try and make it confusing because if people understood what was actually going on here, they would uproar. And Henry Ford said that. Okay, so he said if people understood how the financial market worked, they would uproar. but they don't. Okay, and that's why these bankers get away with it, because people just don't understand what's going on. Okay, so it says there that repackages and redirects the payments of the principal and the interest from a collateral pool to different types of maturities and securities, thereby meeting investors' needs. Right, CMOs were first created in 1983. It says the investment bankers, Solomon Brothers, etc., etc. Okay, right. Let's see if there's any more, bits on one. So that's all I wanted to bring out on that. Okay, right. So it says CDOs. It says collateralized debt obligation. It says collateralized debt obligation is a type of structured asset security. Okay, an ABS, originally developed in the corporate bank markets. Over time, CDOs evolved into encompassed mortgage and mortgage-backed security markets. Okay, like other private label security, CDOs can be thought of as a promise to pay the investor with a prescribed sequence, right, based on the cash flow CDO collects from a pool of bonds or asset it owns. Okay, so let's read that again and break down what's going on. So it says private labels are security-backed assets. CDOs can be thought of promises to pay the investor, right, in its prescribed tranches. I believe tranches goes into just another form of debt. Sorry, in the prescribed sequences. I dropped down a sentence there. So as I tried to explain before, okay, you got an investor, they buy a certain amount of assets, okay, and they pay those assets off using CDOs, which they offer up to the bank, okay, and as you're seeing here, the cash flow that they're gonna get, or the interest, the money they're gonna make off of that, is in the hope that the people who got the mortgages, all right, which those mortgages, those ninja loans, those subprime loans, the variable rate loans, okay, all of those different loans are packaged into those CDOs. Okay, they hope that all of that was packaged within that is going to make them money over time. Okay, but what you don't realize at this level of dealing with CDOs, not at the lower level of buying mortgages and so on and so forth. Okay, or the highest level here, right, with investors and so on and so forth. What they don't see is what's collected within that within that collateralized debt obligation. They just see an entity that's apparently going to give them a certain amount of money back based on the rating that it's getting. Okay, which is a AAA, AA, and triple B, and so on and so forth. For which the triple B is regarding all of those subprime loans, what they really should have been. But what you had, as you're going to see within the movie, is you had it to where people were demanding that those bad loans, those bad collateralized debt obligations, will be packaged and will be labeled the senior most value, which is a AAA. Okay, so people were buying these CDOs. Okay, all right, and then and as you've seen within these different types of loans, okay, it becomes very difficult to make the repayments, so you default. So this could be regarding tens of thousands of mortgages, and you have people defaulting within that. It's not it's not a good investment, man. So you're gonna have what's known as a market crash, and that's the same thing you have happening right now, of which we're gonna go into this a little bit later on. So seeing as I've finished, I'll read this last little bit here. It says, consequently, coupon payments, interest rates vary by tranche, right, which is the safest, most senior tranches receiving the lowest rates, and the lowest rates receiving the highest rate to compensate for the risk, okay, which is what you have the AAA and the double B, so on and so forth. When you watch the movie, you're going to see that a lot of these people are receiving the AAA rating. A lot of these CDOs were receiving the AAA rating, okay, all right. And like I had said, that's just all of them bad investments, them ninja loans, okay, them variable rate loans packaged into something called a CDO, okay, which is then sold off to another person, which that person sells it to another person, okay, and then you could group all of these CDOs, okay, you could group them, okay, to make a new one, okay, so you don't know what's basically people were selling what they didn't know what existed in them, in the hope that people were gonna make their payments back, okay, and in making their payments back, everyone's gonna get rich. Okay, but that's not what's gonna happen. That's not what happened. That's not what's gonna happen this time, man. Okay, so let's go to we'll go to this one here. So it says here, CDOs are back. And will they lead to another financial crisis? And this was posted in 2013. It says collateralized debt obligations, the bad boys of the financial crisis of 2008 are back. It says CDOs securities that hold different types of debt, such as a mortgage-backed security, corporate bonds, which are then sliced into varying levels of risk and sold to investors. Okay, it's just with the Federal Reserve committed to keeping interest rates low, investors such as the pension funds seeking higher returns are deriving demands once again, right, for for these such as securities. So people put their money towards a pension and they expect a higher return on their pension. Okay, therefore in turn, the Scottish widows of the world and the invention, the pension funds and so on and so forth, okay, drive the market into getting higher returns on that. Okay, it says driving demand once again for these structured risk securities. It says with riskier but provide more bang for the buck than the bets such as treasuries and investment corporate bonds. It says this year Deutsche Bank launched at 8.7 billion CDO in tranches with a payments rate ranging from 8% to 14%, right, garnering strong investment from investors, strong interest from investors, according to a January 24 story in Bloomberg News in the U.S. In the U.S., firms such as Redwood Trust have started selling CDOs backed by commercial real estate for the first time since the credit crunch. Okay, Bloomberg reported in 2014. Okay, so they're back to doing the same thing that they had. They're basically saying, I'll read this bit. It says, but CDOs mostly held mortgages that were rated lower than AAA by credit agency, providing a higher return for investors because they were riskier. Okay, it says the commission said, however, the CDOs itself usually attracted a higher rating because it was grouped together with different mortgages based on the security. Okay, so in grouping them, it received a higher rating, but it was really a bad investment in the first place. Okay, and it says the belief was that the diversification, right, provided by the diversification provided additional safety. Okay, it says the hypothesis was to take a BBB tranche of mortgage-backed securities and diversify them with a tranche across different issues to have a more diversified portfolio and to become a AAA. Okay, so to break that down, okay, you've got 10 pots, okay, and all of them has got good stew in there, okay, right, but you need to sell, and they show this example within that movie too, but you need to sell that last pot, right, and then the last pot, okay, so 9 of them are good, but one is bad because one's gone off, okay, so in order to sell it, in other words, to diversify it, you're going to split it up and put it within, and that can have rotten meat in it. Okay, so you're going to have rotten meat, you're going to put it all into the other 9, and you're going to have what's known as a diversified portfolio. Okay, and that's what happened, man. But that meat is rotten. It's going to make people sick. Okay, it's going to make people sick. So what happened? The whole economy, failed, man. Okay, so I'm going to finish up on this in a second. We'll finish with that. Like again, I'm doing this in the interest of time. I know Jake's probably switched off by now. Okay, but as I'm going through this, you're supposed to be pausing and going through it and understanding for yourself and picking up stuff that I may have not gone into. Okay, so it says, what is a bespoke tranche opportunity? Okay, the Big Short ends with this big warning. Okay, it says America has come a long way since the 2008 crash, and it says the country's housing markets are back on track apparently to have the best year since the recession, and this was posted January 2020, I believe it's in 2015. Okay, I believe it was 2015. It says America has come a long way from 2015. Right, so it says the nominated 5 Oscar Big Short offers a different look on the subprime mortgage crisis and nearly dismantled the American economy. And it says when we go into this geezer basically believes that the government was behind that crash. Okay, he believes that the government was behind that, of which they were. Okay, because why? Because this is all leading towards the chip, man. So the people become so dependent on the economy, that what that when you actually have a crash that dismantles the global economy, they're gonna need something else to another solution to that. Okay. Um, right. So it says here, according to Bloomberg News, a bespoke tranche opportunity is just a fancy way of what new word for what's known as a collateralized debt obligation, or a CDO. It says, for years, investment banks put together packages made up of thousands of mortgages loans to sell them to the highest bidder, and the buyers happily picked them up because they promise high returns. It says, but during the mid 2000s, the CDOs were increasingly filled with bad loans, aka subprime loans, that were incorrectly given stellar rating, which is the AAA ratings that we looked on a little bit earlier on, and peddled off as good investments. Risky homeowners failed to pay their mortgages. Okay, the value of CDOs collapsed, making investors unable to pay back their loans that they borrowed to buy the CDOs in the first place. This triggered a ripple effect that caused the economy to spiral. Okay, and you're seeing that they've just called the same. They just had the old thing. They called it a bespoke tranche opportunity. Okay, so I wanted to end off with this guy, which is like one of the main characters that is depicted in the movie. Okay, so it says the big shot hero is wrong this time. Okay, it says it's a sad story that human genius isn't as versatile as we'd like. A basketball legend may be a mediocre baseball player. A great scientist may be a terrible investor. Few would question the investing prowess of Michael Burry. Okay, the one-time hedge fund manager featured in Michael Lewis's book The Big Shot. It says Burry proved his brilliance as a value investor in the early 2000s and became a legend by predicting the collapse of the housing bubble. Okay, so now let's go to the meat of what is said here. Okay. Right, so it says this quote, which is this quote over here. You can read that in your own time. Okay, this quote demonstrates the oblivion or attitude that many of Wall Street have towards the banking policies. Burry criticizes the government both for supporting banks too much and prolonging them. Okay, it says worryingly rather more. It says Burry repeats a theory of this crisis that has long since been discredited. The idea that the government caused the crisis by encouraging home loans to the poor. Okay, which is they're gonna try to discredit that, but that's actually what's happening again. Okay, it says he continues. It says the interest the Federal Reserve pays on the excess reserve of the lending institution broke the money multiplier and handcuffed lending to small to mid-sized enterprises. Okay, and it says right, let me just see if there was any more bits I wanted to bring out of that. But in essence, okay, when you go into his background, he's basically predicting that we basically, because the problems of 2008 weren't fixed. Okay, you had a problem. Okay, and they fixed it by funneling money towards that problem. Okay, that being the government. Okay, and I believe he's going into the fact that you're gonna have basically the same thing happening again. Okay, so hopefully I kept that underneath 40 minutes. Hopefully it was of edification. Check out the movie, check out the information. And with that, Mr. Double Honors, the Apostle GMS, honors you both because in his truth and sincerity. All praise unto Yahweh, Hashem Yahshai. Shalom.